Well, good morning, church. I hope this video finds you well. I hope you're not driving each other crazy in your house. Kids, I hope you're behaving. Parents, I hope you're finding some way to survive being cooped up in a house with your children. You're probably thinking of ways that you can thank their teachers and principals as soon as they get back there. So thank you to all our teachers and administrators and lunch people and all the people that work in school. You are definitely appreciated for all the hard work that you put in, more now than ever. You don't know what you got until you lose it. So that's kind of where we're at on a lot of things right now. This morning we are going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. We're going to start in verse 12. So 1 Corinthians 12:12 says, "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, 'Because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the ear should say, 'Because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as He chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, 'I have no need of you,' nor again the head to the feet, 'I have no need of you.' On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and on those parts of the body that we think less honorable we bestow the greatest honor, and our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our more presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, helping, administrating, and various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire the higher gifts, and I will show you still a more excellent way." This is a great passage. I love this. I love this passage. It's a long one, and like a lot of Paul's writings, it's kind of wordy, but it really says a lot. But there's a really simple core message to this particular passage, which is just simply, we're all needed and we're all important in the body of Christ, which is the church. We started this, I don't know, however long ago, looking at the Acts of the Apostles, and then moving into the letters of Paul's epistles to the churches, to see what it meant to be the church and how we could move forward and be a more accurate portrayal, I guess, of the church, and be the church that God called us to be. And I don't think it's an accident. As a matter of fact, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is no coincidence that things have worked out the way that they have. I know that while I had no idea that coronavirus was coming and we were going to be locked up in our homes for who knows how long, but God knew. God knew, before the foundations of the earth, exactly what was going to happen. And so when He led me to, start this particular study on the epistles, He knew that today we would be here talking about these things. And so, I think it's important for us to remember, and important for us to move forward with this in mind, that we are all important on really two fronts. And I've got 2 points for you from this morning. We'll try to keep it as short as possible. It's no fun preaching to a screen anyway, but we're doing the best that we can here. And so Zach and Robert should be pleased. We're keeping this as short as as short as we can. It's easier for me to keep it short on these videos, I guess. But really two fronts I want you to think about this morning and pray through for the next week. Number one, if everyone is important, that means that you are important, and what you bring to the table is important. Your gift may not be the same gift as someone else's. As a matter of fact, it's most definitely not the same gift as someone else's. Not all of us are teachers, and this particular passage makes it very clear that, thank God, we're not all teachers. God didn't make us all preachers, prophets, singers, musicians, whatever those gifts are. Thank God that He made us differently. He makes the point here by saying, what if we were all eyeballs? Well, that wouldn't make a very good body. We couldn't smell anything, we couldn't hear anything, we couldn't taste anything, we couldn't get anywhere. A body made of all eyeballs is not a very useful body. And a body of believers made of, all one particular gift is not a very effective body. It's not what we're supposed to be. And so your part, your gift, is important, and it's needed for this body of believers to be everything that we're supposed to be. Years ago, I read this really great book. It was called Revitalizing Church in Rural America, and you probably heard me talk about it before if you've been around very long. There's the gist of the book is this guy. He was a youth minister up in Tulsa, and he ended up going. He went from this huge mega church to this little country church in Arkansas to pastor. And he got there, and it just great things happened. God really blessed them numerically with the the quantifiers that are easily seen, rear ends in seats and dollars in the bank account and those type of things. And he wrote this book about how the things that we could do in our small rural churches to revitalize them. And there's one part of this book, and I was early in my pastorate. I hadn't been a pastor very long, but one part of this book says that you've got everyone in your church that God needs to do exactly what God wants to do. And I read that, and I remember thinking, well, that's easy for you to say. You've got 5,000 people that sit in your church on any given Sunday. And when you've got 5,000 people, yeah, you've got everybody that you need. You've got musicians, and you've got administrators, and you've got money people, and you've got teachers, and you've got leaders, and you've got servants. You've got all, sure, out of 5,000 people, I'm sure that's true of you. And I kind of scoffed at it and put it down and went on about my life. But later on in that week, we had a serious need in our church. It was in children's ministry. We really needed somebody to step up and take a leadership role in that place. And within just a couple of days, someone came to me and said, "Hey, I've got an education in this, I've got experience in this, and I would love to help in children's ministry." And instantly I was reminded that what this guy had said, that God has given us everything that we need to do exactly what God has called us to do. And man, I've held on to that for years. Ever since then, there are times where it has felt like maybe we don't have the people that we need. I wish we had more of this type of person, or I wish we had people that were gifted in this particular way, or whatever it is. But I always have to remind myself, and I guess God has to remind me, that God has put in Addington Baptist Church everyone that He needs to accomplish exactly what He needs to accomplish and what He wants to accomplish. And so I would just encourage you in this, that you are a part of that. The gifts that God has given you, the things that God has gifted you with, the talents that you have are for the edification of the church. And they're important to the church. And so the church needs you. You need the church. I talk about that a lot, that we need the church. We need that body of believers, and that is 100% true. But at the same time, the church needs you. God gifted you and called you to this church, And the church needs you. It needs your attendance. It needs your giving. It needs your presence. It needs your gifts and your talents. It needs you. She needs you to be a part. You can't just gouge out an eye and expect a body to continue to function in the same way that it otherwise functioned. If you've ever stubbed your toe really bad, the other day, it's been about a week or so ago, a couple weeks now, I guess. We had some furniture sitting out in the living room that Lindsay was painting, and so it wasn't where it normally was. And I was walking through the house. I didn't have any shoes on, and I hung my little toe on this piece of furniture. And to be honest, I'm still not sure that it wasn't broken. But man, I've got to tell you, that little toe, man, it doesn't seem like much. You know, it doesn't seem like it's bringing much to the table. And as long as it's functioning properly, you know, you don't notice that you wouldn't even think that you needed it. But as soon as you hang that bad boy on an end table or, you know, the bed frame or, you know, whatever, and that sucker starts hurting, you realize that it's a little more important than you thought it was. And each one of us, even the little toe, brings something important. And so your church needs you to be there, needs you to bring your gifts to the table and contribute in the ways and the areas where God has gifted you. And so you are an important part of the body of believers. So that's the first one. The second one is that the person who irritates you the most at church, the person that you know just gets under your skin a little bit, they're gifted differently than you. God made them different, wired them different, you know, whatever it is, but God still, they are valuable too. Not only are you valuable, not only are your gifts valuable, but everyone that God has called to your church is valuable, and they bring something to the table. And so it's important that we learn to work together. You know, ever since I hung my little toe on that bed frame a couple weeks ago, I mean, it's aching right now. I'd kind of forgotten about it till I started talking about it, but you know, it's a little bit achy. It's irritating. I don't particularly like it, but that doesn't mean that I don't need it. That doesn't mean that it doesn't bring something important to the table. And so I've got to figure out how, you know, to work with it, to make it a part of what's going on, because it's bringing something valuable to the table in the way of balance and I don't know, whatever else little toes do. God put them there for a reason, right? And so, you know, the church has all these different people, and that's the great thing about a church, is that it's got all these different people with different attitudes and different opinions and different outlooks on life and different perspectives and all these things. And so that's really great, and we need all that, but at the same time, we tend to congregate around and empathize with people who are like us. And so, yeah, the people who look like us, dress like us, you know, talk like us, think like us, vote like us, those are the easy people. Those are the people that, you know, we look at and we say, oh, well, they're obviously needed. Here's what they bring to the table. Well, there's also a group of people that have a different perspective on life that maybe aren't as much like us, but that doesn't mean that they're not valuable members of the body of Christ. That doesn't mean that they aren't needed. God brought them to the body the same as He brought you and me, and so we need to work together under the things that we agree on, the most important of things, and move forward and figure out how we work together as a body and make sure that we're including those folks in the church, and that we are a body of believers. You know, a church works just like almost everything else, every other organization that I've ever been a part of, and I'm sure that the same is true for you. You know, they've done studies, and the statistics tell us that in any organization, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And, you know, our church is no different than any other churches or any other organization. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And, you know, we could complain about that, we could lament that, you know, whatever. But the truth is, what that means is 20% of the people probably need to make room for those other 80%, because a lot of the time the reason those 20% are doing 80% of the work is because, they kind of live with high fences and they gather this stuff up and this is mine, this is my little part of the kingdom, and we don't let anybody else in. And so, those 20% have a burden to bear in this equation. We're a lot of times not making room for somebody else to come in and be a part of the ministry and to take over a part of that. We take the things that we want to do, the things that we're good at, the things that we like, whatever the case may be, and we guard that, and we don't let anybody in. We don't make room for anybody else. And then the 80% has a burden to bear in that too, because it's easy to just sit back and let somebody else do it. It's easy to, not even think about, hey, who vacuumed this room between last week and this week? Who, is doing the accounting? Who's writing the checks? Who's, paying the taxes? Who's, whatever? Who's doing those things? There's a handful of, prominent roles in the church that everybody knows who does those things. Everybody knows who's preaching. Everybody knows who's, the Sunday school teachers, who's the music minister, the youth minister, anybody with minister in their time. Everybody knows who those people are. But, I think you could poll any church, ours included, and say, go up to all of our folks on a Sunday morning and say, who vacuumed this week? And, there's probably, some of us could give you a good guess, but we don't really know for sure. There's a handful of people that it could have been, and hard pressed, I could give you a list, and if you gave me enough time, I could guess right eventually. But who mows? Who mows our grass when the grass is growing? Who's just all the things that happen. Who's doing those things? Well, you should have a role. You should have something that you're doing. And obviously right now, we can't be together, we can't meet and do the things that we normally do. But let me challenge you in this. I want you to think of something this week. I get a lot of encouragement, and I appreciate it so much. This week I've gotten several text messages and, phone calls, and people, just lifting me up and telling me that they're praying for me and those type of things. And I appreciate that so much. Let's spread that around a little bit. I want to challenge you to think of something that gets done in our church that maybe people don't have any idea who does it. Okay? Not going to give you any other hints or any other ideas on that. Just on your own, think of something that somebody's obviously doing, and most people, maybe even you, don't know who's doing that thing. Find out. You can text me, or you know the people that know what's going on, who know who's doing those things. Text those people, call those people, reach out to those, find out who's doing it, and then let them know that it's appreciated that they're doing that. Phone call, card in the mail, reach out on Facebook, whatever it is, reach out and let them know that you appreciate the work that they're doing and the part that they play in your church. Okay, that's challenge number one. Find somebody to appreciate. Challenge number two, what is your role in this church? Are you a 20%er or an 80%er? Either way, I've got a challenge for you. If you're a 20%er, I want you to find a way to bring somebody else in with you, to see the work that you're doing, to bring somebody alongside, to be a help, to be a part of that ministry, include somebody, make room for somebody else in your ministry. If you're an 80%er and you say, man, Jason, I really can't think of anything that's mine that I'm really doing in the church, I want to ask you, challenge you to this week think of something, some aspect of the church that you could be a part of, and then take the first step to being a part of that. Find out who's doing it already. If it's being done already, maybe it's something that's not even being done right now, and you can head up that that new ministry or that whatever. Don't let that scare you. Heading something up just means that you kind of take the reins of it and make sure that it happens. Doesn't mean that you have to do it by yourself. It doesn't mean that you've got to figure everything out. We've got people that can help you with that. But if God lays that on your heart, then that's your thing. That's your nook now. That's your area of ministry, whatever it is. But if you don't already have a place that you're serving, that you're doing ministry in the church, that you're a part of there, come up with one. Think of a place where your gifts, your talents, your way that God made you can be put to use for the edification of the church, for the good of the body that you're a part of. Because that's the way all these body parts work, is we all work together for the good of the whole. Our nose works to help the rest of us. Our feet work to get us where we're going. And all of this works together, and that's the way we're supposed to function as a church. And so I'm going to challenge you to find your place in this church so that you can be a part of the ministry, and so that you can receive the blessings of being a part of the church. I hope that you have a great week this week. We're praying for you. Hopefully you're hearing from folks in the church. Hopefully you're reaching out to folks in the church. That communication list, that contact list is going to be made available here very, very soon through our church Facebook page. And you can help us, once that goes out, you can help us by filling in the gaps. And we'll update that and make updated versions available and all of that. Also, one other thing, people have been asking about giving. I've almost got that set up. If it's not up already, it will be very quickly. And so look for a post that will explain how you can continue with your tithes and offerings during this time of social distancing and us not getting together and passing the offering plate. Obviously, the church still has bills, and we want to be good stewards. And so we'll look for a post coming up soon, if you haven't already seen it, on how you can continue to help and be a part of the church through tithes and offerings. We should have that up very quickly. Until we meet again, until we speak again, know that I love you. I'm praying for you, and I can't wait to get together and hug necks and shake hands. We'll see you later. Bye.